بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعزائي طلبة وطالبات شهادة الثانوية العامة قسم رياضة لغات، أهلا بكم. اليوم سنتناول درس جديد في مادة الجبر والهندسة الفراغية. بالطبع مادة الجبر والهندسة الفراغية هي مادة شيقة جدا ومهمة جدا في حياتنا اليومية. النهاردة عنوان الدرس اسمه معادلة الخط المستقيم في الفراغ. وطبعا في ناس كتير بتدرس رياضيات الهدف منها النجاح فقط، ولكن الهدف من دراسة الرياضيات هو حل مشكلات المجتمع في جميع أرجائه. يعني احنا ممكن نستخدم حل المشكلات في الاقتصاد، في السياسة، في كل مشاكل المجتمع بنستخدم فيها حلول مختلفة ومتنوعة باستخدام مادة الرياضيات وخاصة مادة الجبر. ودرس النهاردة هو درس معادلة الخط المستقيم ولكن في الفراغ. طبعا في فرق شاسع بين معادلة الخط المستقيم العادي ومعادلة الخط المستقيم في الفراغ. طبعا الفراغ بيحتوي على أشياء كثيرة جدا، طبعا أنت ما بتشوفهاش بالعين المجردة، فلذلك احنا بندرس الهندسة اسمها هندسة الفراغية. فدي مهمة جدا جدا في حياتنا، لأنك أنت بتدرس كل جسم او كل شيء بالثلاث ابعاد اللي هم عن طريق الاكس والواي والزد. طبعا العلم الحديث اثبت ان انت بتجيب بوزيشن او وضع كل جسم بناء على الثلاث ابعاد في اكس راي، اكس واي، او اكس واي زد، او اكس او زد واي، او واي اكس بلين. طبعا الدرس ده مهم جدا جدا في حياتنا اليومية، فلا بد ان احنا نهتم بمادة الرياضيات على اساس ان هي مادة تطبيقية حياتية بنتناول دراستها في الحياة اليومية. Welcome my dear student in our math program for secondary 3. Today we are taking new lesson in solid geometry. It's called the equation of straight line in space. My dear student, at the first, you learned in the previous years the straight line in a plane and how to find forms of the equation of a straight line in a plane, vector, parametric, general forms. In this lesson, my dear student, we learn the straight line in space and how to get equation of a straight line in space in different forms. My dear student, we study this lesson because it's much important in geometrical fields and application on space science. Direction vector of a straight line in space. As a first, direction vector of a straight line in space. My dear student, look at, we have x, y, z, theta x, theta y, theta z are the directed angles of a straight line in space. Look at theta x, theta y, theta z are directed angles of a straight line in space. Then cosine theta x, cosine theta y, cosine theta z are directed cosines of this straight line. Remember, my dear student, cosine theta x, cosine theta y, cosine theta z are directed cosines of this straight line. And they are usually denoted by L, M, and N. L equal cosine theta x, M equal cosine theta y, N equal cosine theta z. So that we know L square plus M square plus N square equal 1. Why? Because we have cosine theta x power 2 plus cosine theta y power 2 plus cosine theta z power 2 equals 1. Also, we can write L square plus M square plus N square equals 1. so that the vector form or the vector unit vector Li vector plus Mj vector plus Nk vector is the unit vector in direction of straight line. And any vector parallel to the unit vector is called direction vector of straight line, and it's denoted by d vector. Therefore, d vector equals k multiply bracket contains Li vector plus Mj vector plus Nk vector, or A, B, C, where A, B, and C are proportional to L, M, and N, so that don't forget K belongs to R. Example: if we have 2/3, third, 2/3 are direction cosines of the straight line, then the vector D equals K multiply 2/3, third, 2/3, represents a direction vector of a straight line where K not equals 0. But my dear student, K equals 3 by substitution, then the vector became 2, 1, 2. If we put K equal -6 by substitution about K equal -6, the vector became -4, -2, -4. The straight line has infinite number of parallel direction vector. Each is parallel to straight line. Example: find direction vector of a straight line passing through point A, -2, 3, 1, point B, 0, 4, -2. Look at my dear student. Direction vector AB equals B minus A. Therefore, point B minus point A equals what? Equals 0 plus 2, 2, 4 minus 3, 1, -2, -1, -3. This is called direction vector of the straight line. What is the vector form of equation of a straight line in space? Look at my dear student. If L is a straight line, look at my dear student. If L is a straight line in space, whose direction vector? The vector A, B, and C. And pass through the point A, whose position vector is a vector x1, y1, z1. And if point B is any point on a straight line and position vector is R equals x, y, and z, then we deduce that our vector equals a vector plus AB vector. This is called vector form of straight line. The vector form of straight line R vector equals A vector plus AB vector. Don't forget, my dear student, we have 3 types of vector of straight line. R vector equals A vector plus AB vector is called vector form of equation of a straight line. But my dear student, AB vector parallel D vector. AB vector also equals TD vector. If we have 2 straight lines are parallel, we can put in the form AB vector equal TD vector. Therefore, our vector equal A vector plus TD vector. This equation is called vector form of a straight line. Example: find the vector form of equation of a straight line passing through the point 3, -1, 0 and the vector -2, 4, 3 is a direction vector for it. My dear student, look at what is the required. The required vector form of equation of a straight line. What is the given? We have point passing through or belongs to the straight line 3, -1 and 0. And from the given we have the vector -2, 4, 3 is called direction vector for straight line. Therefore, my dear student, as a first 3, -1, 0 represent a point on a straight line. Therefore, a vector 3, -1, 0. Also -2, 4, 3 represent what? Excellent student, direction vector of a straight line or the vector. The vector equal -2 plus 4 plus 3. Then what is the vector form? Excellent student, R vector equals A vector plus TD vector. The equation of straight lines is R vector equals A vector plus TD vector. Therefore, R vector equals 3, -1, 0 plus T multiply -2, 4, 3 is called vector form of a straight line. My dear student, the equation of a straight line or vector form of a straight line represented by R vector equals A vector plus TD vector. My dear student, this equation is very important. What is the vector form of a straight line? The vector form of a straight line represented by R vector equals A vector plus TD vector. My dear student, if we have 2 points and the required is find the vector form of a straight line. Remember, my dear student, we have equation of straight line but in space. But remember, from preparatory stage or prep stage, we can form equation of a straight line with 2 dimensions, x minus x1 or y minus y1 equals m multiply x minus x1. This equation of a straight line in 2 dimensions, but in space 3 dimensions. We have point and direction vector. Then when the required find the vector form of a straight line, we must know 2 bases. The first, the point which passes through straight line at or which belongs to a straight line, and we must know direction vector of a straight line. And remember, my dear student, if we have 2 straight lines are parallel, then we can represent it. Any 2 straight line are parallel, then the straight line or the first line equals k multiply the second line. When 2 straight lines are parallel, then 2 straight lines are equals. Therefore, we can represent if L1 parallel L2, therefore L1 represents straight line, the first line, the second line L2. If L1 parallel L2, therefore we can put L1 equals K L2. My dear student, look at another example. Before we are translate to example, note that T is real number doesn't express unique constant number. It takes different real value. T is a real number, doesn't express unique constant vector, but it takes different real values. And it's called parametric, and for each value of this parametric T, we can find a point on straight line. Look at the important example. My dear student, prove that two straight lines R1 equal 3i plus j negative k plus t multiply bracket contains I plus 2j plus 3k and R2 2i plus 5j plus t2 multiply bracket contains I minus j plus k are intersecting, then find equation of the plane containing them. Look at, my dear student, the solution. We know that if two straight lines intersect, what you deduce? Excellent student. Then R1 equals R2. Two straight lines are intersect. Then R1 equals R2. Therefore, by using the first line equals the second line, we deduce that. Look at, my dear student, the first line or the R1 equals 3i plus j minus k plus t1 I plus 2j plus 3k equals 2i plus 5j plus t2 multiply I minus j plus k. In the first case, my dear student, by equation of the coefficient, we find 3 plus t1 equal 2 plus t2. Therefore, we deduce that t1 minus t2 equals negative 1. We put unknown of t in left hand side, t1 minus t2 equals what? Negative 1. Look at, my dear student, from the second 1 plus 2 t1 equal 5 minus t2. Then we form equation of two unknown t1 t2 as form 2 t1 plus t2 equals 4. From the third negative 1 plus 3 t1 equals t2, we deduce that 3 t1 minus t2 equals 1. Then we have three equations. We solving, or by solving equation 1 and 2, find t1 equals 1, t2 equals 2. Therefore, after substitution with these values in equation 3, we find it satisfies the equation of, therefore we deduce that two straight lines are intersect. The normal vector to the plane is called n vector, or its symbol n vector. Remember, norm vector to the plane is n vector, where n vectors equal what? d1 vector cross d vector. We use determinant to find n vector by putting ijk in first row and coordinate of d1, the first row, 1, 2, 3, coefficient of I, coefficient of j, coefficient of k in d1. Also, by the same method, we put coefficient of vector d2, 1 coefficient I, negative 1 coefficient j, 1 coefficient k. Therefore, we find the normal vector by using determinant 5i plus 2j minus 3k. Therefore, the vector equation of the plane, we return n dot r equals n dot a. My dear student, 5, 2, negative 3 dot r equals 5, 2, negative 3 dot 3, 1, negative 1. Then we deduce that 5, 2, negative 3 dot r equals 20. Why? Because 5 times 3, 15, 2 times 1, 2, sum equals 17, negative 3 times negative 1 equals 3, 17 plus 3 equals 20. Then equation is 5, 2, negative 3 dot r equals 20. My dear student, the general form is by substitution about our vector x, y, z. Look at left hand side is 5, 2, negative 3 dot 5 y, z equals 4, 5 times x plus 2 times y z. This equation of the plane. My student, this example is very important. Find the intersection of the two. Second plane, then between two planes, we can measure of angle between normal vectors and two normal vectors on two planes. Therefore, measure of angle between two planes absolute N1 N2 2Z equals, look at the one equals to negative 4. 2, 3, 1, 2. Therefore, by using measure angle between the two planes, the equation cosine theta equals absolute N1 dot N2 over norm 1 norm N2. By substitution about N1, N2, therefore, look at N1, 2, 1, 4, 3, negative 1, 2 over norm N1 square root coefficient of x power 2 plus coefficient power 2 plus coefficient z power 2 times norm N2 is 3 power 2 plus negative 1 power 2 plus 2 power 2 using 2 times 3 plus negative 1 times negative 1 plus 4 times 2. Answer is 15 over 7 square root 6. Remember, this is cosine theta. Then what is the angle theta? Excellent student. Therefore, theta equals shift cosine 15 over 7 root 6 by using calculator equals 28 degree and 58 minutes. My dear student, by the end of the lesson, we know that equation of the straight line in space. We know form equation of a straight line vector form as r vector equal a vector plus td vector, and we know that how to find intersection point of a straight line to the plane, and we know that what is the angle between two planes by using cosine theta equal absolute N1 dot N2 over norm N1 norm N2. And don't forget, N1 is unit vector, normal vector of the first plane. N2 is normal vector of the second plane. Remember, my dear student, this lesson is very important to our life. My dear student, I'm very happy to spend such time with you. Thank you. Goodbye.